And today is July 25th, 2024. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Secretary, I didn't know. Are you ready, or we can delay a moment?
Pledge of Allegiance first.
Call order, pledge allegiance, okay. I do that all the time. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless you.
Fire evacuation, for those of you who aren't here. If there happens to be a fire or any other emergency, please exit to my left, your right, or to the rear.
Can we get out the back door?
You can get out the back door, yeah. The back door is open. We can get out, right, you can get out, we can go out the downstairs. You can't come in. And then please, when you do exit the building, move as far away as you can from the building. Now, Mr. Secretary, if you're not ready, we can pause.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah. Terrence Lynch.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
Here.
John Petronella is here. Francis Alamo.
I am here, sir.
Joseph Muley.
Here.
Kenneth Helinski is absent. Vinnie Grillo.
Here.
Christian D'Antonio.
Here.
Patrick Hooper.
Here.
And Walter Crizel.
Here.
And attached here we have the minutes of the last meeting.
Mr. Chair?
May 23rd,
Mr. Chair?
2024.
Do you
I'm
want
sorry?
Do you want to seat Christian as an alternate for Ken Helinski's spot
I have
tonight?
to look at my little chart here. Whose month is it?
I believe it's
Just give me a
Christian's.
second.
It's Christians.
Okay, I believe all of you. Christian, I am seating you tonight as a regular member of the Aquifer Protection. Thank you for that. Okay, enforcement officers report.
Hold on. I make a motion
minutes,
to
yeah.
accept the minutes of May 23rd.
Second.
Any discussion on the motions? Amendments, corrections? Anything? All in favor, show of hands. Thank you. Unanimous. Enforcement officer. Rick, would Rick be on this? Is that, or is that you?
That's me.
That's you.
and
You got
there's
two
no-
hats on this, right?
That's
Yep.
me. No violations to report on tonight.
Okay, very good. Public communications, at this point, if there's anybody in the public, which there's not, we'd give you an opportunity to address us or staff on any questions you have relative to aquifer protection, as long as it isn't on our agenda for tonight. And we have no one here, so we're going to move on. Continued public hearings. We do not have any.
No.
New public hearings.
None.
We have none. Old business.
No old business.
Old business. And we do have new business.
Yes.
And I think the floor is yours, ma'am.
Yes, so our applicants are here tonight for 56 Enfield Street. They are joining us tonight on Teams. So they can go ahead and give a background real quick, but the basic premise of them being here tonight is to renew their aquifer registration for the Valero gas station up the street here at 56 Enfield Street. They have a grandfathered approval from 2008 and then again in, I think it was 2013, something like that. But the site is in compliance, no violations. My only recommendation was to relocate the recycling dumpster away from the stormwater catch basin.
Okay. The applicants have anything to add?
Nope, that covers it. There's been no changes since last time. It's just a application update.
Okay, and relative to the request or recommendation of moving the dumpster, any issues with that? I believe our regulations, I'm sure they were explained to you. Concrete pad, screening.
Yep.
All that's
Yep,
included?
it's just the location.
Location. Okay, and that's understood by the applicants of what you have to do after it's moved?
Yes, understood and in progress.
Okay, oh, that's good. All right, any questions from the commission? Any questions from the commission? So you need a vote, I'm sorry?
No, nothing.
So you'd make a motion and you'd condition it that the recycling dumpsters shall be relocated away from the stormwater catch basin.
Mr. Secretary?
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve ARA number 30, 56 Enfield Street application for an aquifer registration renewal for the Valero gas station over the A43 aquifer for activities A and B, GPM Investments applicant, 56 Enfield Street LLC, owner, map 35, lot 46, BG zone, Enfield Street overlay district, with the following condition, that the recycling dumpster shall be relocated away from any stormwater catch basin.
Second. Second.
Second.
Any discussion, seconded by Commissioner Muley. Any discussion on the motion, or anybody want to add anything? Seeing none, roll call, please, Mr. Secretary.
Yep. Frank Alamo,
4.
Linda DeGray,
4.
Vincent Grillo, 4. Joseph Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch,
4.
Christian D'Antonio,
4.
and John Petronola is 4.
All in favor? It's approved. Okay, B. 1 Bright Meadow Boulevard, Mr. Secretary, if you would.
Yep. ARA number 29, 1 Bright Meadow Boulevard, revoke existing registration. Nikki Olette applicant, Welcome Enfield LLC owner, map 35, lot 245, BR zone.
Thank you. Staff? Anything?
Yeah, so in May, we approved the Fairfield Inn Hotel to renew their registration. They've been in the program since 2008. They have been renewing their renewal ever since, following proper best management practices and no violations. And this was because their amounts of liquid chlorine and their de-icing salt. So they have quite a large quantity of liquid chlorine. It's a couple drums, which each drum is typically like 55 gallons. So, we approved the registration. Our normal requirement is we have to send DEEP the aquifer registrations 10 days in advance of our meeting, which was done. They did not respond to me within that 10-day time frame, so we made the motion to approve. Their registration was renewed, and then the day after, they got back to me. So it was brought to my attention that following day that the hotel property is actually ineligible to receive an aquifer registration. This was a clerical error, so the agency tonight isn't actually revoking or suspending. We're just acknowledging an administrative error on the registration. So the confusion back then was the amount of the amount of chemicals on the site, which under the Aquifer Protection Program, we do not regulate the quantity of chemicals. We only regulate the activities. So you're looking at the businesses as which activity do they register. In this case, the hotel, it's a hotel, people stay, use the pool, do their thing, and they leave. That is not a regulated activity. So there was an error in 2008 when the hotel was notified that because of their chemicals, they have to come in and register under this program. So that's not the case. So we need to fix that error that's been happening ever since. And the failure to address this administrative error can result in a notice of violation from the state authority, which we don't want. So we want our town to be in compliance with the Aquifer program. So removing the hotel from the aquifer registration list reduces their environmental liability should anything happen, and it helps them with their insurance liability, which isn't really our issue, but it's good to know for them. So the de-icing activity really only applies if they're de-icing parking lots other than their own. So they only use their de-icing salt for their parking lot. I brought up the question about public sidewalks. What about de-icing public sidewalk? That's not necessarily their property. The response I was told was, we haven't investigated sidewalks, but we know that that's like a gray spot. So when we look at the sites, it's basically what are they de-icing? So for example, Department of Public Works, they have this huge de-icing shed and they de-ice the public roadways. So that's a regulated activity. But because the hotel only does personal de-icing for themselves, themselves, and we do not regulate that. So I feel like every time I work on an application, I learn something new. So we just need to make a motion to acknowledge the proper terminology by saying that there is an administrative error on an incorrectly issued registration where the hotel is basically ineligible to hold such registration. And I do want to note that after many long conversations with Deep about this, we've been going back and forth since May, that Deep is looking at future legislation amendments where regulating the quantity of chemicals might become an actual law. So I asked them, I said, then what would be the point of taking away their eligibility only to have them come back, say, 5 years later to register because of their chemicals? So we can't look at it as a future sense, I've been told. We have to look at it as present, what's happening now. So I did let the hotel know about this future legislation change if that ever does happen. But as of now, that basically means that any business over the aquifer can have as much quantity of chemicals that they want because we only regulate the activities. So that's like a gray spot that Deep is working on with the General Assembly to try and get that fixed.
The hotels don't fall under your activity.
No, they don't. So we're going to fix that error tonight. That way we can get them set on the right path, and then we can cross off one facility on our list, thus reducing their environmental liability in case anything were to happen.
So a couple of questions. You had mentioned public sidewalks. Do you mean the public sidewalks that are required by town ordinance?
Yep, the
The
sidewalks.
ones up on Enfield Street?
Yep,
right?
so those would be the sidewalks that go down Bright Meadow Boulevard.
Isn't that on their property?
Right, well, there's a street right away.
Oh, that's right, there is a street right away.
Yeah, so any
Okay.
sidewalk is typically town
So
owned.
they're maintaining the sidewalks from the building all the way up to Route 5?
I can't say for sure what they do. I didn't really ask that question. I was just trying to get down to the basic premise of what we need to fix.
Okay.
So, and they look at it by parking lot, which parking lot is being de-iced, which roadway is being de-iced, but Bright Meadow is a public roadway. They don't use their icing salt for the road. They only use their icing salt for the parking lot.
Okay, and so they obviously have 100 gallons of chlorine there for their pool?
They have quite a lot, yes. I think the last time I asked, it was a couple of liquid containers, so about 100, 155.
Okay, and I'm sure, on the other side of it, I'm sure fire knows, they do their inspections, that they know, hazardous materials are on site. So I'm sure that there is some protective measures or safety requirements on that side of the aisle. The fire department, I'm sure, has storage requirements and certain
Also, all their
containers.
chemicals, yeah, they're all inside a proper containment. This was resolved when we did their registration in May, so there's no violations. Everything's stored correctly, has correct labels, there's no concerns.
Right. So this is not a safety issue whatsoever, since
Nope.
there's another entity looking to make sure that's stored correctly and what have you.
Yeah, but even if they don't have to register, they still have to follow best management practices,
Right.
which we always follow up on.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Walter, you look like you got something cooking up there. Okay. Yes, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add like a clarification, because the way these registration works, kind of on the bright side of things, I think, in my opinion, is because the registration sits with the property. So basically,
The registration sits with the business.
it sits with the business, but they can pass it off to a future owner.
They can,
Right.
if the property owner changes, but typically the registrant is different than the property owner.
Right.
So this is also a confusing thing to understand. The property owner can apply to be the registrant if their tenants or business does not operate an activity, but if those tenants and that business, if they conduct one of the 28 activities, then that makes them the registrant.
Right.
Yeah.
But I thought the way it worked with Aquifer Protection is it was like when the program first started, everybody had to register, right, with the existing uses. And then if you didn't register, basically you're not allowed that use. The whole point is to protect the aquifer. So nobody would be able to go into this property in the future and have a de-icing facility because it wasn't previously registered.
Right, so let me explain. The way the statute reads is only those facilities conducting a regulated activity may register under the program. So that doesn't mean like any business that's over the aquifer can come in and register. It only applies to those businesses that are conducting one of those activities. We don't regulate like small residential homeowners. We don't regulate smaller businesses that have activities that are not listed on the program. So the grandfather status, because I had the same thought too about like, you know, the hotel registered in 2008, wouldn't they be grandfathered? But it was because in 2008, hotel isn't an activity, so they technically were ineligible to register from the start. So staff didn't catch this in the past. I did find an email from that time frame between our department and Kim Zappel of Deep about how Kim had mentioned that the hotel should not be registering, but I guess somewhere along that communication line it got misconstrued and staff had them come in to register.
And I guess through the chair to staff, just maybe to ask a question. So since they don't have this registration, could somebody tomorrow buy the property and turn it into a de-icing facility?
No. So it takes the site out of the program.
Right. So that's kind of what I was getting at, and that is a good thing for the town because it does protect the aquifer.
Yeah, so the less facilities we have conducting those activities, the better. However, if they're conducting the activities under our program, it's also just as good because then we can do our annual site inspections, we make sure they're in compliance, we check their stormwater catch basins and so forth.
Yeah,
So
kind
it
of
sounds like,
trade-off.
even though the materials are there, it's because it's operating as a hotel.
Right.
Yes.
That's why it's exempt from being
Yeah.
registered.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so somebody in your scenario would have to come before us first, if it ever went from a hotel
Well, they wouldn't be
to a
able to.
de-icing facility.
I have a good
It'd
example.
be a change of use.
So,
They wouldn't be able to do that.
A good example would be like in September, you guys are going to have another registration come before you, but it's going to be because of a different background scenario. So just like you asked, say that the hotel did have an activity and a new business wanted to come in and purchase it. So say that business isn't conducting those activities that the original owner was, they can keep the site grandfathered because, you know, transfer of aquifer registration, but they would put in parentheses that this activity currently on site is inactive. So that activity isn't happening, but they can choose to keep that activity grandfathered. And the grandfathering only works for those sites that were conducting a activity at the time.
And once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, it's pretty much gone. There's not really a way to get back into the program, which I think was another avenue that Deep may explore in the future, because obviously we're limiting businesses over our aquifer, but you know, that's just part of having a large drinking water supply in our town that a lot of people depend on.
What's that?
Yeah.
Anybody
also,
else?
Thanks. So.
I see that there, those applicants here, I mean, there was a lot of people lit up still there.
No, there's no public communication for this application tonight.
No, I mean the applicants themselves.
No, that's the applicant from 56 Enfield.
And they're all hanging around?
Yep.
Oh, okay, no problem. I just didn't know if there was more
They're just
people that need to
chilling.
speak. Okay, so we're going to, and I think John has a motion. If everybody's all set, we'll have the secretary read a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to acknowledge the administrative error on an incorrectly issued registration, whereas One Bright Meadow Boulevard premises is not eligible to hold an aquifer protection registration due to the lack of regulated activities conducted by the hotel business.
Second.
Discussion, please. Seeing none, roll call vote, Mr. Chair? I mean, Mr. Secretary?
Yep, Frank Alamo,
4.
Linda DeGray,
Or.
Vincent Grillo, or Joseph Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch,
4.
Christian D'Antonio,
4.
and John Petronella is 4.
All in favor, unanimous. It has been, I guess, taken off the list.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Do I have a second? Any discussion?
Nope.
Seeing no, all in favor, adjourn? Or adjourned. Thank you very much.
6:49 p.m.
We'll call the meeting to order. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission, July, that ain't right.
25th.
How come I got this old one here? 25th.
Yeah, you got the minutes.
Oh, that's the minute. I'm sorry, it's the minutes. Okay, here we go. July 25th, 2024. Call to order, pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Fire evacuation, number 2 on the agenda. If there's a fire alarm goes off, exits to your right, my left, and to the rear. That should happen. Please go down the stairs and get as far away from the building as you possibly can. Thank you. Mr. Secretary, roll call.
Terrence Lynch.
Here.
Linda DeGray.
There.
John Petronella is here. Francis Alamo.
Here.
Joseph Muley.
Here.
Kenneth Helinski is absent. Vinnie Grillo.
Here.
Christian D'Antonio.
Here.
Patrick Hooper.
Here.
And Walter Crizel.
Here.
Okay.
And you're going to see.
Approval of the minutes, number 4. Approval of minutes of
So
July.
moved.
Second.
What? You didn't want to read them yet? And we look good? We're all good?
I said so moved. You moved to read them.
See Christian.
Christian?
No, see him.
Oh,
Christian, yeah.
yes. Tonight, we're going to see Mr. D'Antonio from alternate to a sitting member. Okay.
We need to vote in the minutes.
Approval of the minutes. Was there a second?
Yeah, Walter.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah. Yeah, well, please. On the back page, it says respectfully submitted by John Petronella. I don't believe John was here.
Standard language.
John, did you watch the meeting, the last meeting?
Yes, I did.
Okay, you want to put that on the record that you?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I did see the entire tape of the previous meeting, so I feel eligible to vote
That was this July 11th meeting.
of the July 11th meeting, yes.
I did as well for the record.
Oh, you did as well? Okay. So Mr. Hooper and Mr. Petronella watched the meeting, and we're going to be able to participate. What do you want to do relative to the signature?
Oh, that's standard. We don't really change that.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Good call, Mr. Lynch. Good eyes.
Sometimes you read things.
So, is that it on the minutes for discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. The minutes of July 11th. Town Attorney's Report, I think we have next to us here. Everybody have one? Dated July 22nd from Attorney Serrato. And it looks like to be what has been on here as moving through the court system. Staff, is there anything you want to bring to our attention? You have something?
Through the chair to the staff. I believe we were supposed to have LaCory on our agenda as per stated by the court.
So it did not make the legal notice, but also I'm still working on it.
Okay, no.
So you'll see it in
Because you had talked
September.
about it, and he's
Yeah.
mandated to be on our agenda, and I didn't see him, so.
Right, he will be on our September 12th agenda.
Okay.
I've been working on both the applications.
Just was wondering what happened
A
that,
lot to compile.
I bet. All right, thank you.
Okay, great. Anybody else for the town attorney's report? Show of hands to accept the town attorney's report? We don't have to, but
You don't have to.
well, maybe make Mark feel good. They did something good. Good job on Mark Serrato's part. Zoning enforcement officer?
Nothing to report.
Okay. And Rick is back. right? We talked about
Rick's
that.
on vacation.
Now he's on vacation. Oh,
He won't be back for a while.
a month?
No, medically he's back. Now he's on a 2-week vacation.
Good for him. You got a question? Sure.
Life can
Yeah,
be
I got a
rough
question.
sometimes.
I got a question. It says Town of Enfield, July 22nd, 2024.
What?
What was the date last Friday? That's when I saw it.
What are you looking
How
at?
could it be
looking at?
written on the 24th?
What are you looking at?
What are you
Oh, no, I'm
looking
sorry,
at?
it's not the.
Oh,
it's not-
that's when it came out to us.
That's,
What are we looking at? The town attorney's report?
no, I'm looking at the Town of Enfield, it's the next page, I'm sorry, the next thing up. April 9th, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission
And it's not in there.
approved the site plan, which is fine. But we got this in a packet from the Town of Enfield, and I guess it's on the bond release, but it says July 22nd. Since I got it in the packet on, I don't know, July 18th or 19th, how did it get there when it was written on the
It's not
22nd?
I'm not sure what
We're
you're.
going to get to that in a
I'm
minute.
not sure what you're looking at.
All right, it's the bond release, but we're, all
Okay,
right.
well,
but
we're
we-
not up to that.
We got 2 more items and
I'm
we'll,
sorry, the bond release.
yep, we got 2 more items and we'll get to that bond release. Thank you for
I just
noticing.
picked it out of the wrong page here.
Okay. So next, number 7 is public participation. At this point, we would invite anybody in the public to come up and speak to the board or staff on anything relative to what we do and our roles here, other than anything that's on the agenda. You can come forward. It's on the agenda. This is not the spot to do it. And I will say it again, is there anybody that want to come up and speak to us? Third time? Seeing none? I will close that part of public participation. Now, we have bond release, and Mr. Lynch, what do you got?
Well, I say, if you look at the top of the page from the Town of Enfield, it says July 22nd. I said, that's wonderful, except I got this in the packet last Friday.
But if you look at the one online, it says July 25th, so I
Yeah.
think that's the date of the meeting, that's not the date of the
Yeah.
bond
Okay,
release.
well, July 22nd wasn't the date of any meeting.
Okay.
But
I
the
wouldn't-
one in the packet, the one online is the 25th, so.
Okay, I wouldn't take too much, I wouldn't worry too much about that. It was just the date that he thought he was writing the memo.
Okay, I'm just-
And sometimes we will put it on we'll write it for the meeting date, and maybe he thought it was the 22nd and made an error and corrected it.
Does it have to do sometime with when the packet comes out, to when it's being drafted, maybe, or?
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, would you like me to proceed with this?
Packet came out, but
Is that-
that's even after that, and before this.
So,
I just gotta stop reading these things.
no, I'm glad you're paying attention. So as long as it was dated,
You turn the page and it's the 25th on the next.
Yeah, right, so,
I think it's just a typo.
I think it was a typo as well, so. I understand what you're saying, how could you
Yeah.
get that before it was actually put out, but,
well, my point is you want to be sure that they're dated in a timely manner, so
Right.
if we do release it, we did it correctly under
Right.
notification and all that stuff. That's my main concern.
yeah, this isn't an application, so it's not as
Yeah,
critical.
so this is, you want to tell us about this, from the Shaker Pines Fire Department? This must have been when they did their addition?
Yes, so they had it, they did their addition, and, we are trying to catch up with all of our old applications. And
That was quite a
realize-
while ago.
Right, so this is one of the things that came up, is like, oh, wow, we really need to release these, and I think perhaps they actually asked us about it. So Rick went out and did the inspection, and the landscaping was good, and the ENS was out. There was no need for the ENS, erosion and sedimentation control. And it's been over 2 years that the landscaping has been in, so it's due to be released.
Right.
So there was no issues according to Rick. And you have a motion on the next page dated July 25th Motion to approve.
If I remember correctly, they did something creative with the wetland as well out there, right? Didn't they do something that's, they got a little creative and kind of made it where you could enjoy it? If I remember
I
correctly.
don't recall offhand,
I think they did something really nice.
but I think
forgot
there
what
was
it
some wetlands in the back, and they may have
They did,
enhanced some
yeah,
of
they
the
did one of those
plantings.
new creative mitigations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could be.
That I'm liking. I'm liking these new ways of fixing the wetlands.
Good.
Okay, so do you have a motion? Anybody have any questions? All right, we'll do the motion, we can do discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission hereby approves the release of the erosion sedimentation control bond in the amount of $12,000 and the landscaping bond in the amount of $1,470 for the project SPR number 1806 located at 37 Bacon Road, map number 094, lot 0062 to the Shaker Pines Fire Department, District 5.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, roll call. 4.
Linda DeGray.
4.
Vincent Grillo. 4. Joseph Muley.
4.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
Christian D'Antonio.
4.
And John Petronella is 4.
So unanimous. Shaker Pines will get their bond released. Okay, number 9, administrative approvals.
None this evening.
Okay, great, thank you. Number 10, Director of Planning report.
I'm still up.
There?
Yep, okay, so not a whole lot to report. The Enfield Square team seems to be moving forward with their plans and getting, meeting with staff, so that's a really great thing. I wanted to just let you know that Zen Leaf, which was the cannabis that took over Outback Steakhouse, they've modified their plan to 3 tenants instead of just 1. So they've actually made their space much smaller. So we did that as a field change. And we are anticipating an application from them for a drive-through.
I'm sorry?
For a drive-through for
The
their
cannabis
operation.
piece?
Yeah, the 1 tenant. We haven't gotten it yet, but that we're anticipating probably by the time we have our next meeting, we'll probably get that
Has that been the holdup all this time? Because
There's been a whole bunch of different things. They've changed some things, and we're still waiting for final plans.
didn't
So,
the state get involved in the parking or something?
yeah, OSTA always gets involved.
Plenty of parking in the mall. I didn't get that one, but,
We-
yeah.
They just put the applications in, and we just wait.
Continue, please.
So that's pretty much it. Steve Heine, our new assistant planner, is doing great. He's continuing to take all his training, and he's very gung-ho, and he's doing a really good job. So we're very excited to have him.
Thought it's lightening up your load a little bit.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
That's it.
very good. Anybody have any questions for Lori, for the Director of Planning? Nothing? Okay. Does anybody have any outside correspondence? Outside correspondence? None. Number 12, Commissioners' correspondence. Any Commissioners' correspondence? Please, Mr. D'Antonio.
Yeah, I just want to say, share that I did attend the fair and affordable housing training that was offered last Monday. I thought it was very informative training. They did record it, so if they didn't send it out, we could probably get, if anybody's interested, the recording. I'm sure Lori would be able to help us out. I thought it came at a very interesting time, especially after last meeting. Mr. Chairman, your comments about naturally affordable, which is what the whole training was about. They characterized
I
it
wrote the
as-
curriculum.
Basically, yeah, basically. Yeah, so they use the terminology light touch density, LTD, which I've heard missing middle. You guys may have also heard missing middle before. This was a new term I've heard. This is kind of on the smaller scale of missing middle. So everything, I saved a screenshot from like 2 to 8 plexes, townhouses, ADUs, and even just single-family detached homes on smaller lots.
Like what we were talking about.
Exactly. So yeah, and they talked about how it's a very moderate increase in density, more efficient, more naturally affordable, readily upgradable for homeowners. When talking about accessory dwelling units. So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to share, again, kind of just some of the interesting findings I had. They had some great advice on things to try to avoid, like things to do and things to avoid. So they talked about, which was interesting too, trying to avoid low maximum floor area ratios. Try to avoid high minimum lot sizes, which is something, we're looking into. They actually, interestingly enough, they do say avoid mandated inclusionary zoning. Instead, they prefer allowing lot splitting and home splitting. I thought that was an interesting. They do say avoid rental bans or rent control. They suggest instead allowing higher density residential, such as with live local urban villages, so more like compact.
That's kind of what I was talking about.
Yeah, like mini neighborhoods,
Right.
so to speak. They say to avoid owner occupancy requirements and instead zone sufficient land for greenfield developments like those urban villages. Yeah, so those are they do add to, which is something I always stress about. Avoid outsized parking or other requirements that increase construction costs or prevent building entirely. So.
Well, we had to deal with that already, so we know we're.
Right. Yeah, we're
Why
seeing.
we talked about what I talked about. As far as,
So we're seeing these come in through applications. I think it's all on our minds. We're going through zoning regulations, and I think these are all great to keep in the back of our minds when we're.
Did they have national data backing up any of the statistics, or was it just at Connecticut?
They focused on Connecticut. Yeah. The two slides I had saved, they talked about. Actually, well, here on this slide it says nationally. So if everybody were to kind of be a little more flexible, they said nationally, light touch density has the potential to add up to 900,000 net additional homes per year for the next 30 to 40 years. And then I think they had Connecticut-specific stuff as well, but I didn't save those slides right in front of me.
Good, thank you for the information. I'm sure Dr. Poland's on it, right? I'm sure he's aware of what's going
aware
on.
of it.
Our
Yeah,
consultant.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So it's up to all of us to
Yeah.
encourage Don
Yeah,
and
this is, like I said, this is going to be,
supportive
this is for the ages, this next one.
Right.
This next look at our regulations is, going to have a big impact on this community.
yeah, it's
going
very
forward.
very
But
exciting.
Thank you for that.
So I'm glad to be a part of it, and I hope everybody else is
Yeah,
excited for it.
good. I have something, Raising Cane Chicken, I see, they moved their dumpster and their refrigerator.
I believe so.
It's gone.
That's my understanding,
Yeah,
yes.
so-
I went by, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, since last meeting. It was there, I think, not that long ago, but I'm glad they moved it. And I think we did it through a letter or notified them they're in violation. Now, at the same time, can we let them know, or did we let them know if there's any avenues for them to come back, back to my theme of being business friendly? If they really need that refrigeration and that extra dumpster, they need to work with you guys with a new application or a revision of their approval. I want to be friendly to them and anybody else that, is here in town and wants to come to town. I mean, obviously, they underbuilt their refrigeration and their dumpster. So, I'm sure the parking, they took up 2 parking spaces with the dumpster and the refrigeration, and so I'm sure, I don't know if they have enough extra parking or, but please, reach out to them as well and let them know if they're in a bind with the refrigeration and their dumpster. We certainly don't want garbage being thrown around if we could accommodate them somehow. But thank you for reaching out to them and,
Well, I have to give credit to Rick, so
Yeah.
I was not the one, but we did have correspondence together, so he had already told me that he had already sent the notice of violation, so they responded.
yeah.
We usually try to let any applicant know that they could always come in and do modifications.
Yeah,
Just let
yeah.
us know, and we'll work with them and walk them through it.
Absolutely. I want them to, know they can, they're a national chain, and, we want to make sure that in the national chain world, if there is one, that Enfield's a nice place to come. So we'll let them come back and talk to you guys, or maybe through administrative approval if you have to do something. But let them know that we're willing to work with them if they need that additional refrigeration and dumpster.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're good? All right. We don't have, so that was Commissioner's correspondence. We don't have any continued public hearings, and we do have a new public hearing, and it's PH 3099. Mr. Secretary, if you would.
Yeah, Lori, I didn't see a public hearing notification in my packet, but I can probably put this together. The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing at their regular meeting on Thursday, July 25th at 7 p.m. in the council chambers at 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following: public hearing number 3099, 617 to 619 Hazard Avenue, application for modification of previously approved plan, public hearing number 2033 for proposed 2,908 square foot addition to professional office building, Gaz's Realty LLC, applicant, owner, map 110, lot 254, R33 zone.
Good evening.
Good evening, Attorney Land, well, no, tell us your name. I was going to say good evening, Attorney
Okay.
Landolina. I'll let
Carl
you do it.
Landolina, Fahey and Landolina, Windsor Locks, Connecticut, representing the applicant, Gazes Realty LLC, joined to my right now, was behind me, Jay Ussery from J.R. Russo and Associates, project engineering firm. Mr. Chairman, I know you have a report from staff, and it sort of goes over the history of this property, at least in the last 30 or 40 years. I'd like to put in the record the background information for that history. As you know better than I do, I'm sure some of you, there was a restaurant on this property decades ago when Mr. Gazes acquired the property. He is a certified public accountant, and he wanted to move his offices to that location. And at the time, you had a regulation which said that, well, this property is and was at that time in the R33, even though it fronts on Hazard Avenue 190 and had a commercial use, was zoned at the time R33. And you had a provision in your regulations, which I think probably still exists. We'll see if it stays in the next iteration, but that you could, by special permit, request that a non-conforming use be changed to a lesser non-conforming use. So I have a copy of that application, just I'll put in the record with staff, of that application from 1998, which was approved by this commission to change the non-conforming use from a restaurant use to a office space. Your commission having specifically found that the office use was less non-conforming, and I can see how you would. A restaurant has a lot of traffic in and out. Accountants have much less traffic. As you understand, they're busy. Well, I'm sure Mr. Gazes would say they're busy all year, but heading up until April 15th is when they're usually the busiest. So I'll just put that in the record.
Okay.
And also, under both sections of the regulations which apply, there's references to the Plan of Conservation and Development. So I'm just going to put in Chapter 6 of your current Plan of Conservation and Development, which you just worked with Don Poland on and just adopted last year. This is commercial and industrial development and economic development, and there are some things in there that I think are relevant to this application. So rather than go any further into the specific requirements of the regulation, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, I'll hand it over to Jay, and he can talk to you about the, yeah, sure. Yep. To the specifics of the site plan application. Is this for Lori?
Yes.
Okay. You want me to hand those out to?
Could you?
Sure.
Let me keep one
Yeah.
for everybody. Thank you.
Oh.
Good evening.
Good evening.
For the record, Jay Ursrey, J.R. Russo and Associates here representing the applicants. And as Carl pointed out, this is an application for an expansion of Gazis Realty property, accounting office, which is currently located on the corner of Columbia and Hazard Avenue. And in the photographs that Lori is passing out right now, there is a picture on the front. The first one is the existing building that's basically the subject of the application. It's more or less to the northeast corner of the property. And I'm going to walk up here for a second to the board and just kind of point out, this is, if you're looking at your plan set, this is page 2, which is the existing conditions plan, which kind of shows you what's here currently. To the bottom of the page is 190 Hazard Avenue. To the east side or the right-hand side is Columbia Road. The driveway entrance is over here on Hazard. There's a fairly extensive paved parking area here that's in the front, and then it stretches out and actually circles the existing building that you have the photograph of there, and I'm sure you can see that in the picture. There's a single-family residential ranch home that's located here. Piece of the paving comes over here and winds up in front of the garage for that particular house. The paving that's here now, I'm guessing, had something to do with the restaurant. It quite frankly doesn't make a lot of sense. It's very wide, although it's not wide enough for a double row of parking. They're only currently using it as a single row, so there's a lot of extra pavement there that really isn't necessary, and we're going to be removing probably 30% of it in this application because it just really doesn't do anything for us, and we're trying to reduce impervious coverage. In terms of the existing site conditions, if we look along Columbia here, there's some large trees located against the side of the road. We've got pines here. Those range in size from 36-inch to 18-inch, and then 2 larger maples, which are 14-inch and 18-inch that are located here along Columbia. To the back, existing maples again, an 18-inch and 18-inch, 12-inch over here. Small row of some kind of deciduous trees here, and then another large 36-inch maple over here on the westerly side. There's a hedge across the front here, and then some small ornamental trees that are located over here. There's an existing chain link fence, which basically follows the property line along the west, the north, and then partially down the side on Columbia. So what we're proposing here is, in addition to the existing building, and I'm just going to flip over, and this takes you to page 4 of the plan set, to show you how everything changes here. Essentially, here now we have the existing building, and we have the proposed addition that comes off on a wing over here to the left-hand side or heading to the west. And it's about 2,908 square feet, the footprint itself. We've reconfigured the parking totally, and you can see that the existing driveway that wrapped around the building is gone. The paving that came up almost to the front of the the ranch house that's over here, that's all been eliminated. So there's quite a reduction in paving. In terms of parking spaces that we're proposing, this particular plan shows 29 spaces. The requirement based on your regulation is 11 spaces. In Georgie's report, if you took a look at that, she estimated 16 spaces on what was there before and paved. Not sure exactly how many they could have parked because it's never been striped. So there was a lot of blacktop, but not very efficiently the way it was laid out. So we've reduced the blacktop substantially, and we now have 29 spaces for the site, including 3 spaces for the house here and 2 handicap spaces that are located up here. Now, if you go through Georgie's report, she's got a fairly comprehensive analysis of the site that she put together. Myself and my partner, Tim Kuhn, have gone through it, and I think we probably answered most of Georgie's questions. There's a couple of little landscape items that are remaining that I think we can work out with
maybe a little more detail in the landscape data block. But other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape when it comes to landscaping. But there's a couple items that she did talk about that probably we want to talk about quickly here. The original approval, which goes back to the 80s, which Attorney Landolina mentioned, talks about a buffer requirement. And your buffer requirements have been in your regulations for a long, long time. And you've got A buffer, B buffer, C, and I believe D. And at the time when this was approved back in 80, whatever it was, 87 or 88, something like that, the requirement was for a 35-foot buffer. Your regulations have actually changed in that amount of time. And right now, based in this zone, the side yard setback and the rear yard setback is 25 feet. And the buffer requirement in your A buffer is 25 feet. And we thought that it made the most sense to go with the 25-foot buffer. And in fact, we meet that in all locations except right at the corner of the proposed building here. We're at 32.5 feet. And as soon as the building goes a little bit to the north, we meet the 35 feet because we're not parallel with the property line. We're askew to it. So there's a little section there that's probably about 10 feet long of the building that's maybe between 2.5 feet and 0 feet shy of that 35-foot buffer. We have extensive plantings along this side. We've got additional evergreen plantings that are shown here, and there are existing plantings along the fence. We also are removing the chain link fence, and we're putting up a solid 6-foot vinyl fence to assist in the screening for the neighbors here. We felt between the vinyl fence, the 6-foot fence, and the additional landscape screening that we're providing that it was sufficient, and that the 25-foot buffer probably made more sense, since essentially you could build out on a residential structure to within 25 feet of the property line. And like I said, at the closest point here, we're at 32.5 feet, and that's only for a very short section right at the corner of the building. One of the other things that I guess we're going to talk about a little bit, and I think Georgie mentions again in her memo, is in your regulations currently there's a requirement that shows up in a couple of places. It's in your landscape section where it talks about sidewalks, in the landscape and parking section, actually. And let me just see if I can find it here. I think it's 10.10.7. Okay, 7A. Correct, .di. And it's in a report. And basically what it says is any parking area designed or intended for use by at least 3 parking spaces shall have a minimum landscape setback for parking spaces, driveways, and aisles from property lines of 10 feet, and shall have a minimum parking spaces, driveway aisles. Okay, I'm not in the right spot here. Hold on.
There. The sidewalk? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes. Okay. 10.10.7. 5, a sidewalk not less than 4 feet wide shall be constructed and may be located either in the landscape setback or the street right-of-way. Sidewalks are proposed on the detail sheet, but not included on the plan. Actually, the sidewalks in the detail are for the sidewalks around the building. We didn't propose any sidewalks on this site, as there are no sidewalks in the area. And in the past and other projects we have worked on, and one of the more recent is actually right across the street from this, which is the old Blair Manor, which was a change of use to the residential use, increase in parking, and so on and so forth. And it's currently under construction. There was no requirement there to add the sidewalk along Route 5 at that, Hazard Avenue at that particular location. Here at this particular location, in terms of looking at sidewalk, I guess after thinking about it, talking about it with the applicant, that maybe a sidewalk along Hazard Avenue might make sense here. The one along Columbia, I'm not sure about. And one of the reasons that I kind of shy away from Columbia is the fact that we have mature trees currently along that entire side. And as I just pointed out when we went through that, there's evergreens that are between 18 and 36 inches. There's maples in the 18-inch range, and if we were to put a sidewalk there, we'd have to take them all down. They're very close to the property line. They're between the curbing and the property line, and the root systems would be impacted such that they'd all have to be removed if a sidewalk is installed. So I guess, if this were new construction, certainly I could understand it. We'd have to put the sidewalk in, but it's an existing non-conforming site, and there are a lot of existing plantings and trees that are there, and it would seem to me somewhat counterproductive to remove large landscape shade trees and evergreens along the roadway to put in a sidewalk at that particular location. So understanding what your regulation says, to me, it's kind of an existing non-conforming site, and being this a special permit, I'm thinking that maybe the commission has some latitude here in this particular situation as to whether or not a sidewalk is absolutely necessary or not along Columbia. As I said, Hazard Avenue, maybe that makes some sense, and we have the ability to do it there, as there are no trees that would have to be removed along Hazard. Other than that, and I guess we'll get back to that with some discussion, but in going through Georgie's memo, she put together at the end of the memo basically department comments, and some of those are, I'm just going to go through them quickly because there's not much here. Current dumpster location, current parking locations with striping are missing, and there is no dumpster. They don't currently have a dumpster. They don't generate a lot of trash at their location, and there is no existing line stripe. So she's correct, it's not shown. We do show a dumpster based on this expansion, and that is screened with a fence and as well with landscape vegetation. The 3 parking spaces that are located in front of the residence or the garage, we are not intending to line stripe those. Additional landscaping along the shoulder next to the garage, and it is possible to put some landscape there. We're showing lawn, and my only thought was that during the winter, there's probably going to be snow storage there, so any landscaping that we might put there would likely be damaged during snow plowing. That's assuming it ever snows again. We haven't had a winter in a while, so but these are all basically minor items that we can certainly work out with staff and could be a condition of approval, I think. Floor plans and architecturals are not signed, and there's some elevations and some missing measurements, and I'm told the architect's working on that. He was on vacation and is currently back and is beginning to work on those, and we will get those for the staff. The buffer, we can discuss the C buffer versus the A buffer. As I said, there's only a very short section where we're shy of the 35 feet. And building coverage, our data block currently shows building coverage. Georgie would like to see impervious coverage, and we can add that. There is a slight reduction overall in impervious coverage for building and paving on this site compared to what it is today. As I mentioned, we're removing a substantial amount of blacktop on this particular project. And there's a couple of minor details from engineering in terms of depth of the concrete or the thickness of the concrete for the pad, processed stone, and so on and so forth. And those are minor items that we'll clean up on the detail sheet. So essentially, I think in terms of discussion items here, it's the buffer, the 35 versus the 25, and the sidewalk items, unless commissioner staff has any other questions at this point in time. But I think those are the things that we need to kind of talk about and hash out and see what we need to do to make you folks comfortable that hopefully we could get an approval for this and move forward. So that being said, I think Carl might have some more comments. If not, any questions from the commission?
Thank you, Jay. I do have a few more comments, but I'd like to go back to the sidewalk issue. So this particular application falls under a few different sections of your regulation. In one respect, the nonconforming use section, which is section 3.40, would allow this use because there are two components to that. You can, in your regulations, which I think are great, most towns don't allow the expansion of a nonconforming building or use. You guys do under certain circumstances, and it requires a special permit. And the two provisions are that you change to a less nonconforming use, which happened. That was sort of part one. It was 20 some odd years ago. That was sort of part one. And the other part says that you must come in with a special permit, and you must find that the changes is you go to section. Then you go to section. This is 340.1D, and you have to comply with that. And it says you'll hold a public hearing and require a special permit review, which you know is the highest level of review for your commission. And you must find it's consistent with the goals of the PLCD, is harmony with the neighborhood uses, and will not be a detriment to the orderly development of adjacent properties. So I think staff would probably agree that we've met those guidelines and set forth in 3.40. And one of the reasons I put in the PLCD is in your section on commercial and industrial uses, you guys spent a lot of time on this, so you know the language better than I do. You know, office space now is not what office space was 20 years ago. It's declining in use for a lot of reasons. COVID actually, that trend was happening, but COVID kind of put the gas pedal down on that trend. So here we have someone who wants to create additional office space. He's going to occupy that office space. His business is growing. He's got his children now working there, and there's some expansion for future use. He doesn't have any plans for it right now, but with the cost of construction, if you can build a few extra square feet, you're probably better off. I think John could probably attest to that, building it now and waiting to see what might happen in the future. And again, the use has been there for since 1998, 1999 as office space for an accountant. It certainly hasn't had any detrimental impacts to the R33 zone that essentially wraps around it, or development of the properties adjacent to it. So I think you can make those findings as required under 3.40. To go back to the parking is the sections that were mentioned in the staff report are site plan. That's from the site plan regulations, section 10 of your regulations. And that when it talks about a 4-foot sidewalk and so on and so forth. This also is in the Skidco overlay district, the design district, which is another set of regulations, which is found in 8.75. All right, and that's to create sort of a village sort of area down there. I know the last thing you probably approved in that was the, is it Advance Auto or? O'Reilly's. O'Reilly's Auto. That's, I think, the last building, and I think that's completed and open now. That's just down the street from us in the same district. Has the same requirements that all the overlay properties would in the Skidco design area. The Skidco design has its own section on sidewalks. All right, and essentially says we want to start making this more of a village feel, and that requires pedestrian-friendly uses. And you know, so I'll read you the section that actually applies. Now, keep in mind, this is no longer just a site plan; it's a special permit as well, which gives you more authority, I think, to be flexible as well as to put conditions on it. But the section that applies under 875. It says that first we must address the concept of mixed uses in the village. That's one of the things that village zones typically require or aspire to. Fortunately we've been in mixed use for 30 years. There's a residential component here, and we've got an office component which we're trying to increase the size of. It talks about certain design standards. And design standards aren't really detailed. It talks about, New England design, And you can see from the photographs what's there now. You know, you've got sort of a cape, you know, traditional New England design cape with a doghouse dormer and covered entryway. And then you can see from the next pages what this building is going to look like. You know, the one thing about New England is that, I don't know, I've been a few other places, and I'm sure you have probably more than I have. I mean, you get to some parts of the country and every building looks exactly alike. Go out to the Southwest and you'll see rows and rows and rows of the same thing. New England, the style in New England is colonial, capes. There's all kinds of design features in New England, which I think gives it a pleasing architecture. Some places I've been seem a little boring to me in terms of their architecture. But in any event, I think we probably meet those standards. Then we'll get to, again, we're talking about 8.75B small double I-C, provides pedestrian amenities such as gathering areas, sidewalk cafes, new sidewalks, or extensions of sidewalks. So there are no sidewalks to extend here, but as Jay said, what we are proposing, what we think, given the latitude that you have with special permits, would be new sidewalks along the frontage on Hazard Avenue. And Jay went by the O'Reilly's, and you did require it there. There are new sidewalks on that. And I always thought that was part of the parcel, the little plaza in the back, but I guess it was an out parcel, so it stood on its own. I'm not sure, you'd know better than I do, but the rest of that plaza doesn't have any sidewalks, but you get to sidewalks when you get to O'Reilly's. So in keeping with that sort of condition, we're hoping that you would be agreeable to just sidewalks on the 190 side of our parcel. So I think we do meet the design standards in their regulations in their 8.75. And I don't think I need to read into the record. You know the POC better than I do in terms of what your desires are, especially with design districts. And this is sort of, maybe this was ahead of its time when it was done. This was only done 7 years ago, but even then, because I know when you guys were talking in January, one of the things that the chairman mentioned, and I think there was sort of a general agreement that, especially in the R33, which covers a lot of portion in town, and you know, you used to have zoning that sort of met, like the R17 existed. There were even, I think, an R10 at one time, perhaps. Maybe I'm getting my towns mixed up, but that, you know, everything got upgraded to an R33, so you have hundreds, if not thousands, of lots, houses on lots that are non-conforming in the R33. And one of the things the chairman mentioned was to do an assessment. And I would think, especially along, you know, 190 and Elm Street, where you've got these parcels that have frontage but exist on the R33. There's many, many of them up and down that have commercial uses, but they're placed in the R33, and that's something you wanted to look at. And at least in this small area, by incorporating the Skidco Village Overlay District, you've sort of done that. You've sort of taken this away from the R33 zoning and said special zoning doesn't apply to this particular area. And this is one of those lots for mixed uses and so on and so forth. So I think that gives you the latitude to approve this. And, you know, his business is expanding, which is a good thing. He wants to stay in Enfield, which is a great thing. And this will allow him to stay for the next generation, as Mr. Gaze is, he only says he wants to work another 30 years, but right, Janice? That's it, 30 more years and he's done. And then the family will come up and then the grandkids after that. So I think we're done, and if you have any other questions, be happy to address them.
Staff, if you would.
Yeah, so the only thing that is probably the major problem would be the sidewalks. So Mr. Manolina referenced that putting sidewalks along Hazard Ave may be feasible, but just from looking at the aerial, if they put sidewalks along Columbia Road, then it kind of connects to the existing sidewalk network where you see sidewalks throughout Columbia, Cornell, Midway, Arbor Road. That entire subdivision is a connected sidewalk. So I would,
Columbia is, you said.
Columbia is a residential street.
It's sidewalks.
Yes, there's sidewalks on Columbia except for where the Gaz's property begins. So it would make more sense to require the sidewalks on the Columbia portion than the Hazard Ave, since Hazard Ave doesn't have the sidewalks there now to connect to. I'm going to touch briefly on the buffer. In 1998, Buffer C was approved, which was 35 feet deep. So that wasn't a requirement. The Planning and Zoning Commission from the 98 era made that determination based off the use of the property, where they said commercial use, commercial buffer. So they made that 35-foot requirement. So now they're expanding their building, so buffer A would actually make more sense as it's residential to residential, and buffer A is 25 feet deep, thus giving them a little bit more wiggle room for swale, landscaping, reducing impervious area.
So there is no issue with the buffer. They're within it and it exceeded at some points.
Yeah, they did in the 1990s. I believe the thinking was just the use. So doing buffer A actually seems more feasible than requiring them to do buffer C again. Then you have less of an error, less of a worry, worrying about that buffer and where the corner of the building is and whatnot. So, buffer C is also for a different type of use requirements. So this is just residential to residential, so buffer A makes the best sense in this scenario. And then, like Jay touched upon with the comments from staff, these are pretty minor comments, and I don't see why they wouldn't be able to be incorporated as conditions of approval. So that would include adding the impervious coverage, existing and proposed to the final plans. Having that reduction is very beneficial for the site. Relocate the dry well within the swale, sidewalk to be included along Columbia Road, satisfy all engineering comments, and then to utilize buffer A. So that's all I have.
I'll turn it over to the commission. Mr. Grillo had his hand up. Go ahead.
Greg can go first, please.
Please.
Okay, I'm just a little confused. That's all. Not a big deal. First off, the dumpster pad, you've got it right by the house. Could you find a better place? If I were going to be living in that house, I wouldn't want a dumpster right at the end of my driveway, and that's where it is. But that's okay. I'm sure you can figure that out. And I'm looking at your drawings here, these
Renderings, yeah.
and I'm a little confused because here on the left-hand side, you've got 3 parking spaces, but on your drawing, your plans, it's just like a little bump out for a person to back up. Is this just like a?
It's conceptual drawing, yeah. The architect didn't.
And that's what I wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
And having been over there, that is a narrow parking lot, and you mentioned it, that it is narrow, but on your plans, you have parking on both sides. So that's where my biggest confusion is.
Actually, currently, for the record, J. Ursary, J.R. Russo, the existing paved area that's there is actually very wide. We're narrowing it, and it meets the standard in your regulation with 18-foot stall depths and a 24-foot wide drive aisle. Why it's put together the way it is now, I don't know. My only thought is, as I said, it must have something to do with the restaurant. I don't really know, but we're narrowing it and taking paving away, and it does meet the standard in your regulations.
It just was a little confusing to me. But is there, and again, I'm not the architect, and I don't own this property, and that dumpster right at the bottom is somebody's driveway. I know he owns the whole property, and I think this is a good use for this corner, but.
No problem, we can change it.
We can take a look and see where we can modify it.
I'm just saying.
I think we were more concerned about keeping it away from the street in Columbia Road and trying to hide it. But I'm sure that between the 6 of us in our office, we can come up with some solution.
Good, thanks.
We'll do our best.
All at billable hours, by the way, too.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Grillo. Oh, you were all set, Linda? I'm sorry.
You sure?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Two things, not big concerns. Actually, on that corner, that's 32.5 feet that you say would be in that buffer, that front left corner.
By the new building?
So if it's exactly 32.5, it's actually, the piece of the building is only 3.2 feet of it is actually sticking over if you did a radius from the corner. So we're talking,
Right. Yeah, Jay mentioned 10 feet. You're saying it's only 3? Is that what you're saying?
and that's just the corner.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting
Yeah.
at is that doesn't seem to be a huge
Yeah.
deal for me. Georgie's recommendations that she put in, I actually agreed with everything she put in there.
Mm-hmm.
The buffers, the trees, it's like she read my mind. You got to understand, I know you're not going to like this. Across the street, there's new homes going from, you're at Webster, Georgia, all of that, kids, family, residents like crazy. If it was up to me, the sidewalks are like a no-brainer to me. You killed me on that one. They gotta go in. We are trying to do it, like I said, across, definitely down Columbia, but my recommendation is right around the corner on Hazard, because you will eventually get to Hazard. I pulled it up, and you start after Webster, you got one more, right after Webster, you start to get into the daycare center, and then you're going to start to get into the plaza right there where everything is. Besides the
Grillo,
building, that looks great.
It sounds like you have something up on your screen. Would you mind if we just took a look at it?
All I did was I just pulled up, sure you could.
Yeah, I just want to see what
pulled
you're
up
looking at.
the,
I have it right here, just the GIS.
yeah, the map.
right?
I just pulled up a map,
It's just
just so I can,
Yeah, you have an aerial map there.
yeah, that's all.
That's just our GIS.
Basically, the entire northern subdivision is sidewalked except for this spot.
Everything.
All right.
And that's why I looked at it on the phone, so.
Okay, I see what you're referring to. Yeah. I was misinformed by my,
That's okay. I was going to show you this. That's okay. So for me, it has, I really want the sidewalks there. The building itself
Understood.
Is fine. I think the building itself, the design fits in. And like I said, that little piece, it's literally when
Negligible,
I marked
right.
it out, it's only
Yeah.
a teeny corner. I'm not concerned about
That's why
that
doing
myself.
bufferway was the best. It helps the applicant with the best design for the Skidco Village overlay. So at the end of the day, after construction's done, it's going to look beautiful, and we'll continue to monitor the buffer.
But what I'm saying is there's no need to shorten
Yeah.
or move the building. That's just what I measured out, and
yeah, I appreciate that. And
That's-
sidewalks are your call. I mean, we understand that.
it's not that drastic. If it was the whole side, maybe we'd be talking something different, but it's
Yep.
literally,
We understand.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grillo. Next, anybody else? Looking over here.
I just was going to say, to Vinnie's point, I would agree. That, I mean, that the side on Columbia's side where there is already an existing sidewalk there, it's a very small piece to put in. I don't know if that disrupts those trees that you were talking about, but I would totally agree with what Vinnie just said.
Thank you. Any more comments? So,
I got
go ahead,
I got something,
Mr. Petrino.
Mr. Chair. With respect to the sidewalks, I mean, I agree with the overlay district. I think it's the intent is supposed to bring the community to more pedestrian friendly and so forth. So, the sidewalks are a key component of that. As far as the architectural plans that we received tonight, I guess I got a comment somewhat directed to staff as to, we seem to be getting less and less of what's required, I think, of drawings. Aren't we supposed to be getting building elevations and floor plans? Now, the floor plan it is a good floor plan. It's not to scale, and I think it's supposed to be to scale, but But the floor plan is, at least it's got dimensions on it, and it's pretty well accurately depicted. But the elevations are more, as Mr. Landolina said, they're basically conceptuals. There's no dimensions on it. We don't know the height and so forth. But and where I'm going with this is we seem to be getting or accepting less and less for that, and you worry about other applications of more prominent, larger facilities that are giving us less and less. And I think we got a standard, and I think we should be meeting that standard.
Right.
They're good conceptual renderings and so forth, but I don't think that they meet the intent of architectural elevations and so forth. But again, as a conceptual drawing or a rendering, they're fine. But we usually get these in addition to the architectural plans. And as I said, I'm throwing that out for discussion with staff and with the commission as to how we want to go about going forward with this. I don't want to get into a thing where we're accepting less and less or
Right.
not meeting the requirements for this because. One day it comes up to bite us, and so forth.
Right. I did mention that to them, that the floor plans and the architecturals aren't signed and sealed. We had no indication of who prepared them. They're missing elevations and measurements. They did provide you floor plans and the concept architectural. If the commission would be open to this, we could always make the final architectural elevations to be reviewed in office by staff or the building official.
Good with that?
Yep, all set, thank you.
That's not a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when an applicant comes in for an application, is there an application guide packet that they have to?
Well, we have our ARTs and we tell them what's required. So whether or not they submit what we tell them to, we catch it during the review period.
So that's what I'm saying. How do we rectify this missing or forgetting to put something in and going forward to Commissioner Petronella's?
We can be more.
You do provide a packet, right? Like a guide?
They get the
Every
application checklist and everything. We do our best to communicate with the applicant during the review period, and if whether or not they choose to respond or give us what's missing, that is up to them. We can only do so much between being the messenger, but they know typically what's required when they come in.
Well, I'm sitting here looking at these two gentlemen been doing this longer than I've been alive.
That's what I'm saying. It's not
So I don't know why they're, they know it's got to be.
I did tell them.
Right, so they know it's got to be in there. So,
Yeah, you're correct, and your staff did comment and request it, and we requested to the applicant that we needed something more refined, and apparently the architect is on vacation, and I'm not making excuses, but
I understand.
your staff did comment immediately when the stuff was submitted and said, this isn't acceptable, we need something a little more, as Commissioner Petronella said, a little more professional here with stamps and seals and who did them, and we made the request, and apparently they're in the process, but they haven't arrived yet, so certainly they're coming, and we will provide them when they arrive.
Yeah, my concern is that people don't see it in their checkoff packet. Like I said,
They
these
definitely
guys,
see it.
They see it, okay. You got to make
So,
sure that's
They saw
correct.
it.
It needs to be updated or anything.
And you're correct, we knew, although I am getting older, I do forget things.
Like I
these
said, you
days,
guys have been
but-
doing this longer than I've been alive.
So
Maybe not quite.
if the
We better stop it right there, right? So now back to the the sidewalk and the trees. So as you know, we've been very consistent with the sidewalks. You see all the past applications. I don't know how we missed Blair Manor. I think we were enforcing our sidewalks. You say they're not required there. I don't know how we missed that.
They're not in the overlay zone, but
We've
I don't
been
know.
very consistent.
Yeah,
But
I understand.
I
Look,
think it might have been because it's an existing building.
It's the opposite side.
It's the opposite side, but we've been very consistent
Yeah.
on the sidewalks. But that's,
We're on that side, so why make them one sidewalk on that side? It's- we want-
no, but we've been consistent no matter what side the sidewalk's on, yeah.
I think
But that's another issue, that's nothing to do with.
well, as I said, Mr. Chairman, the sidewalks are your call, and we'll abide
And I
by
didn't
whatever you
want to-
guys
No, I mentioned
agree.
it because I didn't want him to think, well, you didn't make them
No.
do it over there, you're making us do it over
No,
here. We're trying to be fair and consistent.
No, like you say, we've been at it a long time, and
Yeah.
there's a song, I think it's called "You Don't Always Get What You Want," right?
So then on Columbia, it is the sidewalks, and we talked about some very large trees, right? You said, what were the diameter?
18 to 36.
Yeah, you know, sometimes that's an issue. Those trees could be half rotten, dead inside, you know, so.
Yeah.
You know, and again, we've been very consistent in trying to be fair across the board with the sidewalks, so I'm for the sidewalks as well. And it's been, you know, we had back and forth with other applicants recently on sidewalks. So, and you know, connecting to a neighborhood.
Yeah, frankly, I did not realize until I just, you know, Vinny and Georgie showed me the pictures, but, you know, because I've only driven by the frontage, but it would certainly make sense to connect to something that's existing. I mean, it's in your regulations, and certainly so, yeah.
So for some reason, I'm missing the house. Where's the ranch? I don't see it in the drawings.
It's on the property.
I don't see it on the drawings.
Some sort has to have it.
But it doesn't show anywhere.
We got to go to the site plan.
I'm on the site plan.
Yeah, that's there.
Yeah, it's there.
Existing house, it probably says. It's got to be there. His sister lives in it, so it's there. We know that.
Why am I missing that? Yes.
Okay, you're on floor plans, that's
No, I know, but I don't see it anywhere here.
Site plan.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a separate building.
It's right there in the front.
Oh, it's down here.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's in the front by Hazard Ave.
Okay. Oh, it's way, okay.
Left, yeah.
I see it
Lower
now.
left.
Oh, yeah, yeah, now I see it. That little speck. Oh. Okay, got it. That's the only other thing. My bad. Okay. So at this point, if everybody's done with the questions, we have to open it. Well, I'm sorry,
Yeah, if you
Mr.
don't mind.
D'Antonio, go ahead.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, no, I'm on the same page as everybody regarding sidewalks. But, you know, I also recognize the importance of preserving whatever trees we can. It doesn't sound like there's an arborist involved. Is that correct? Do you have an arborist
There's no
on the
arborist.
project?
You can't save those trees. They're large trees.
No way.
We're going to be excavating probably 12 inches way inside the drip line, and we're going to destroy a lot of the root system. The root system that we destroy is going to be on the inside of the tree, on the private property side. That means when the wind blows out of the west, there's nothing to hold them up, and the trees are going to fall in the road, in Columbia Road. They're not going to fall in the house. They're going to fall the other way, because that's the roots that we're going to be ripping out. So the trees have got to come down. We don't need an arborist.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if there's no chance to preserve them, because our regulations do allow you to go into the setback for the sidewalks. So if that would allow you any more flexibility, I just wanted to bring that up.
We've got the building right there, the existing building that's pretty close, and the trees are probably already fairly close, and maybe have already been pruned to keep them out of the building, so I don't see any way to do it.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, with that said, you know, I think that would, necessitate an updated plan to see, the sidewalks, and I guess we'd have to double check with staff to see if landscaping would be required there. We do have requirements for street trees, so I think that would call into account our street tree requirement. So there would be new landscaping required behind the sidewalks
There
then.
would be additional landscaping
Yep.
added behind the sidewalk.
Yep.
So that would modify the landscape plan, and we would add in more landscape material to provide some screening of the side of the
Yep.
building between the walk and the building itself.
Right. And if I'm correct reading the plans, it doesn't seem like there's any additional screening proposed as of the current plans, right, on that side of the building, on the Columbia side?
Currently, no, there is no additional screening proposed there, because there's not a lot of room, and we've
Right.
got those large trees
Right.
that are already shading the areas.
Right.
But if we remove those, put the walk in, there'll be an opportunity to add screening material and some plant material.
Okay. Yeah, no, we appreciate cooperation.
So we actually don't require specific landscaping for the sidewalks alone. Instead, we only require that the sidewalk be constructed either in the landscape setback or in the street right away.
So I guess is the implication that that would be entirely voluntary? on their part?
For the additional plantings, yes. So we can always, and we've done this before with other applicants where they've submitted plans before you without sidewalks and PCC requires sidewalks. So we had made a condition on the past applications that sidewalks shall be added to the final plans subject to engineering or staff review.
As a condition.
As a condition, yes.
But we can't add the condition about landscaping because it's not required by
It's
regulation.
not required. The applicant would have to be like applicable to that type of thing.
Okay, but if they are
Commutable.
amenable and they can agree for us to put it in the conditions,
That's up to them.
okay. I'd say, we can see with the staff to see if they're amenable,
How
but
about
I
if we
think that
tell them
would.
they have to plant orange trees?
So they do
long as it's available for
they
the
do
neighbors.
have existing trees there now along Columbia. You can kind of see them in the light gray color right here. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right here. Right here they got the bushes, vegetation. They have some landscaped lawn area where their signage will be. So having that additional landscaping for the sidewalks would have to be up to the applicant.
Right. Well, yeah, we were saying
so landscaping
if
would
the
be-
sidewalks go in, those Columbia trees have to come down.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, if we can get the applicant to agree
It
to
would be up to them.
supplement,
It's not
it's up to
something-
them, but I think it would be greatly appreciated by us
Please.
and the neighbors
Yeah,
as
I think
well.
he's going to respond.
Yeah, for the record, Jay Ursary, J.R. Russo, the applicant has offered to provide additional landscaping behind the new walkway between the building and the walk.
Great. That's awesome.
Very
So
nice.
I propose that we add a condition of approval, if you don't mind.
What would that condition read? I'm making a list for you guys. How would
Might
how
as
would
well-
you?
Would you want to let staff
Yeah.
know what you have proposed to us?
The applicant shall provide some additional plantings and vegetation between the building and sidewalks on Columbia Avenue or Grove, whatever. Sorry, whatever it is. Didn't have that on. Did you get that, Georgie?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
So until we design the sidewalks and figure out spacing and all of that, we can't tell you how many and where, but we'll put something. I mean, like all of us, we spend more time in our job than we do at home,
Right.
right? So this is their home, and they have family that lives in the building, the house, so they're going to make it look nice,
Great, thanks, Attorney Landolina, and then they'll go over it with staff later.
Sure, of course.
Everybody good? You
Yeah,
good with
thank you.
that? Okay.
It's a nice plan, otherwise appreciate that.
Everybody else set down there?
Yeah, these two.
Oh,
I would just say that the landscaping will be subject to review and approval of staff.
okay.
So I have 7 site-specific conditions for you. John, I don't know if you want my computer, so you can just read
Can I
them.
just ask you a moment, should we just pause and, after it's a public hearing, right? So I have to,
Yep, this is a public hearing.
yep. So before, you want to finish up doing what you're doing for John? And
I finished, you're all set.
so I'm going to open it up to the public.
Yes.
At this time, I'd open it up to the public. Is there anybody who'd like to speak in favor or against this application? Anybody in the public like to speak in favor or against? For the last time, is there anybody that'd like to speak in favor or against this application? Seeing none, public participation is closed. We haven't closed the public hearing, but the public participation piece of it is done. Now we can continue. Please.
Do you want to take like a 2-minute break and then we can go upstairs and print out the site specifics, or do you want to read them from the laptop?
John, I'll leave that to John, whatever way you would like to do it.
It doesn't matter.
You-
You're adding, how many sites specific?
There's 7, and there's only 1 listed in my memo.
Just
Do you just want my computer? You can take it.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yes, absolutely. Let me label them for you.
So at this time, we'll entertain a motion to
Make
close.
a motion to close the public hearing, PH 3099.
Second.
Discussion. Motion's made and seconded.
I don't know.
Did they get that? Discussion on the motion. Did you get that? I'm sorry. Okay. Discussion on the motion? Linda?
Just an observation to Christian. You want these trees. You do realize after several years, those roots are going to push those sidewalks up between the sidewalk and that. I see it all the time because I do a lot of running and walking in Long Meadow and Route 5. There were some times it's like several inches you're walking. So if you're planting trees near these sidewalks where you're asking, that's what's going to happen. And then they become tripping hazards. It's almost dangerous at times. So.
I was thinking they were going to do something.
Thank you, Vinny.
I was thinking they were, I was thinking they were going to do something like shrubbery or
Yeah.
something decorative.
Yeah, since you haven't closed the
Trees.
public hearing, yes, it's not going to be, we're not going to replace trees
Right,
probably
it'd
over
be
there or something.
shrubbery or
Yeah,
some kind
just-
of decorative.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Vinny just told me I'm not going to be around, so it's okay. Do whatever you want.
I didn't take it as you were doing trees.
I don't think we're doing.
I think our condition allows staff to work with the
Yeah,
applicant to
something
determine
appropriate.
the landscape.
Lilacs, you like lilacs?
He did say plantings and vegetation. He didn't say trees, so.
Lilacs? Look pretty, right? They're nice.
I encourage native plantings whenever possible. Hopefully staff can work with them. But,
Right, so
yeah,
we're
they'll
going to
use the-
circle back to a public hearing.
We're gonna-
Closed.
Mr.
No,
Chairman-
discussion. That was discussion. We have to close it. Oh, Mr. Landley.
No, no, I was going to make another joke.
That
but go
was,
ahead.
Go ahead, you're a
Wait.
funny guy.
Wait a minute.
Funny how?
I
you
mean,
told me I was going to be around in 100 years, so
Yeah.
forget that. I'm
I
going to
was
be
just
here.
going to say that you have a new tenant in the old Outback Steakhouse.
Right?
It's going to need a place to grow.
There you go. I don't remember the restaurant that was on this property, so
Me neither.
I don't remember. Who's, you do? What was there?
It used to be an ice cream place originally.
Yeah.
Then it was D'Amato's for many years.
Tomatoes, yes. Now,
It was my father's restaurant for many years. John's restaurant and Gazis restaurant.
yeah, now I
I
remember.
remember going there.
Yeah. Okay, so we had this,
That was my only observation.
we're going to put
We're not
lilacs. He
doing
likes
trees.
lilacs.
Okay, lilacs are good.
Even though they don't last long. They flower in May and then they're gone.
It is tree selection is very important. Urban tree selection it is absolutely a science, and yeah, you can't just throw down any tree next to sidewalks. It is a very real risk. So, that's something our staff needs to take into account, and when they have landscape architects involved, they should be putting that effort into good selection.
Thank you.
Great concern.
Okay, we have a motion to close. We've had a second and discussion to close the public hearing.
I missed
now-
I missed the motion, I'm sorry.
Did you miss it?
I was drafting your specifics.
I made the motion, and Joe seconded it.
Thank you.
Okay.
She helped me.
Now, we need a roll call. Oh, we can do a hand vote.
You already voted on,
To close.
No, we didn't do it. We had discussion. We never
oh, you had
voted.
discussion. Okay, you're right. Okay.
Keep going, you're doing good.
All right, see?
Motion to close, yeah.
Okay, now we did the motion to close. Linda had discussion. Now we're going to vote.
Yep.
So we can do a hand vote to
Yeah.
close the public hearing. All in favor of closing the public hearing? All in favor? Okay. Public hearing is closed unanimously. And now, magically, we have 7 conditions that are coming up.
And there's you too tight.
See? You need glasses, John? Can you see that?
Now, there's 25 conditions listed, plus these 7, and you want me to read these in fully?
Yes, so you're going to read this motion. Don't forget the finding.
Right, with the, and then the added conditions. Yep.
Got this. You don't have to read that one because I put it in there for you.
Understood.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, get your bearings.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve public hearing number 3099, 617, and 619 Hazard Avenue application for a plan design special use permit to expand existing non-conforming use and construct a 2,908 square foot addition to the existing non-conforming building. Gaz's Realty LLC owner, applicant, map 11, lot 254, R33 zone, Skidco Overlay Design District, with the finding that this proposed proposal successfully addresses the village mixed-use goal as contained in the Plan of Conservation and Development per specifications 8.75B II, with the Conditions as listed, plus the added 7 site-specific conditions as follows. Number 1, site-specific. Impervious coverage calculations for the existing and proposed will be added to the final plans. Site-specific condition number 2, drywall will be relocated to the west side of the new building. Number 3, sidewalks will be installed along Hazard Avenue and Columbia Road. Number 4, engineering comments will be satisfied from the open government portal. Number 5, buffer Buffer A shall be utilized along the north side and west side of the property adjacent to the new building. Number 6, architectural elevations will be reviewed and approved by staff. And number 7, applicant shall provide additional plantings and vegetation between the building and sidewalks on Columbia Road, subject to the staff review and approval.
There's a motion. Second? Can I get a second? Seconded by Commissioner Lynch. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none? Roll call vote, Mr. Secretary, please.
Frank Alamo.
4.
Linda DeGray.
4.
Vinnie Grillo.
4.
Joseph Muley.
4.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
Christian D'Antonio.
4.
And John Petronella is 4.
Congratulations,
7-0.
gentlemen. Good luck. Yep. Are we ready to move on?
Thank you.
I believe PH 3100 is not here, or they're,
Yep,
Lori,
Mr.
please.
Chairman, the public hearing signs were not installed, so they're going to have to be tabled until September 12th.
Okay,
So no need to open the public hearing or anything.
so,
I make a motion, we table PH 3100.
okay, motion on the floor to table,
Second.
discussion, the table. Did you hear Lori say that their sign was not up in time? Okay. All in favor? Show of hands. Tabled. Thank you. Old business. Any old business? New business. We have an 824 referral from the town council. You want to read into the record, Mr. Secretary? When you got a moment?
The Grace Club.
Yeah, Grace Club.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Resolution referring the proposed purchase of 78 Main Street to the Planning and Zoning Commission, whereas the Grays Club owners the property located at 78 Main Street, map 24, lot 49, and whereas the Grays Club would like to sell the property to the town of Enfield, and whereas the town council is interested in acquiring this property for downtown development associated with the new train station, and whereas the town council must refer this proposed purchase to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a report in conformance with the requirements of the Connecticut General Statutes 8-24. Now therefore be it resolved that the proposed purchase of 78 Main Street is referred to the Planning and Zoning Commission in conformance with the requirements of the State of Connecticut Statute 8-24, prepared by Lori Witten, Director of Planning, July 10th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Staff, a little overview on this. Everybody knows that what an 824 is about. It's kind of self-explanatory, so.
Right, so you are probably well aware that the Grays Club owned and operated their club in the building at 78 Main Street, and it burnt down. And they would like to sell the property back to the town, and the town will, I'm not sure what they're going to do with it, but whatever it will be something transit-oriented, development-oriented, or a new building or a parking or something, but that, well, it could be a parking lot. So, I don't know what the town's intent to purchase it is, but it's certainly proposed to be purchased due to the transit-oriented development with the train station almost directly across the street. So.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it abuts other town-owned property.
I believe it does.
So probably a good thing, in my opinion, if it's abutting other town property.
Yeah, I think that they just can't afford to have it renewed, renovated.
Right,
I think
yeah,
that the damage is too far gone.
But it could hamper, things going forward if it got into private hands, if they sold it to somebody else other than the town, which could bother things going forward with the train station, whatever else we have coming down there. So for those reasons, I think I'd open it up to the rest of the commission to comment. Any comments on the 824?
Yeah, no, I am supportive of it, and I think, the risk of the town not buying it is that it gets torn down and turned into a parking lot until Thompsonville becomes more valuable real estate. So it's just speculated on for years, whereas the benefit of the town buying it to get it redeveloped sooner rather than later, I think is absolutely in the town's benefit. So
Thank you.
I'm absolutely in support of it.
Walter?
Isn't the property next door, wasn't that approved a few years ago for something? to
Yeah,
go there?
mixed-use development.
Yeah.
And then the town had,
92?
yeah, I think the town had deeded
Salas
over.
property.
Right, there was a problem with the old deeds and the,
Yeah.
from urban
Because,
renewal.
yeah, because
That-
of parking,
next?
the
Yep,
parking,
yep.
so that's still in the works to,
Yeah.
something's still gonna happen there
Yeah.
anyway, okay.
So,
Yeah, I don't believe that they're abutting each other, but they're
No.
very close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yankee Castings, yeah.
Mr. Lynch, please.
Yeah, just a question for no other reason than I want to question it. We're doing this under a general statute requirement, but nowhere on here does it give you any idea of why we want to buy the property. Nowhere does it give you any idea what the town is going to do with it, nor does it give you any idea what the town is spending for it. And my question becomes, why?
I don't think it comes under our purview.
If you ask me to vote to say I'm going to okay that they're going to buy the property, then I think it should come under our purview. That's just a comment.
Okay. I guess my response is that I have limited information myself. However, this is part of Thompsonville Development District, and this is part of the transit-oriented development. If the town purchases it, they may redevelop it. It might go into parking because we're short on parking as well. But it would be better in their hands, in the town's hands, so we could do with it what we need to do rather than, as I think Christian said, that, or actually Chairman said, if somebody comes and buys it and develops it in a fashion that is not, in congruence with the TOD, then, we might fail then.
I understand that. However, when you're saying, okay, we want you to vote on this, what are we voting on? That the town wants to buy something. Okay.
So
What do they want to do with it?
So in your motion, it references the fact that it meets the POCD in repositioning Thompsonville to compete for investment and the designation of Thompsonville as a targeted investment area.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just
Okay.
stating an opinion.
I think as far as what they're going to pay for it, that's real estate negotiations, what's first they do an executive session, and then they come out to the public at a council meeting, I believe, and say what that's going to be. So as far as real estate negotiations, that's not here. I don't think we can
That is
vote
correct.
yes or no.
right.
You know what I'm saying? No, I want you to be comfortable with
I'm
with that.
comfortable.
I want
I
you-
just don't necessarily agree with how it's handled.
Yeah,
I'm comfortable enough with
Well,
it.
it's actually a state statute.
That is correct.
Any more questions? Okay. Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair. Mr. Secretary.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to send a positive referral to the town council for the purchase of 78 Main Street as it meets the intent of the 2022 POCD as referenced in Chapter 10, repositioning Thompsonville to compete for an investment and the designation of Thompsonville as a targeted investment area, TIA.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Any new discussion on the motion? Mr. Secretary, roll call vote,
Yep.
please.
Frank Alamo.
4.
Linda DeGray.
4.
Vincent Grillo.
4.
Joseph Muley.
4.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
Christian D'Antonio.
4.
And John Petronella is 4.
Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Town of Enfield.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tax dollars are the worst.
Applications to be received, I believe Lori gave us something. Lori, you want to just go over this?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we will be receiving one application this evening, public hearing 3103, 130 Elm Street. Application for a special use permit to relocate package store per section 8.10.2. Nishant Patel applicant, Freshwater MZL LLC owner, map 57, lot 329 in the BR zone. So this is going into the Costco Plaza.
This is what?
Going into the
It's going
Costco
into the
Plaza.
Costco Plaza.
State Line Plaza.
Gotta be
Okay,
right.
yeah, I couldn't remember the name of it.
It's the AutoZone.
Yeah, see,
I don't know why it's State Line. Well, it's close.
it's close to state line.
All right, so we'll be seeing this next time around. Anybody got any questions for staff on this? All right. Opportunities, number 19, opportunities and unresolved issues. Executive session, we have none. And
Motion to adjourn.
There it is. Motion adjourned, seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor to adjourn?
All right.
See you all in September. There's a song, isn't there a song?
32 p.m.
Isn't there a song, See You in September? Hopefully. Hopefully.